So this is going to be like a quick one-day build. What I want to do is take some of the offcuts from my previous box and build a little box for my phone. But I want to try something unusual with this. I want to use this for the splines. Now this is slats from a child's bed that obviously was rather heavy child that I found beside the road. But it's made out of some plywood, some sort of plywood. I think it's like beach plywood. I've already cut into some of it into some chunks. I've glued it together and cut it into chunks. And so I'm going to try using this as the slats. Plus there's something else I want to try, which I will explain later. But in the meantime, I'm just going to cut up the wood off camera and just get the basics going. And then we'll talk about the splines once I get to that point. So I just wanted to talk about the miters, actually more about the rabbit and the dado that I have over here. Originally I wasn't going to film it just because it was like the same old thing, just a rabbit and miters. But for this particular project I want a little bit of an overhang on one side of the box. So I realized that, oh yeah, I have to create a dado in this piece to sort of accept the bottom. So I'm going to use this thin piece of stair wood, whatever it is again, I don't know. So I'm going to use this as the bottom. I cut the rabbit. It just sort of happened to be exactly one blade kerf width. So I'm going to glue this up, and I'm hoping I can just slide the bottom in there and glue it in. But I'm not going to cut that until the miter gluing is dry, because then I can just size it exactly to what I need. So now I'm just going to glue it up and let it dry. So there's my miters. I'm not going to take the tape off because I want to use that to protect the blowout when I do the splines, which I'll do shortly. But I have cut a thin piece of the wood to use as the bottom. I put a little bull nose on this one end so it would slide into my dado, and that sits in there nicely. So now I'm going to try my little experiment with the dados, and we'll see how that works. Alright, so here's what I want to try. I have the spline jig set really high, so it's actually going to go through entirely through the corner. So what I want to try is putting the spline so it sticks through the corner, and then I'm going to trim it off on both sides. I'm just curious how that would look, and I'm also curious how difficult it would be to clean out the inside of the spline. So I thought I'd experiment on a box that only required one spline, just in case it's more difficult than I'm expecting. Okay, well, I actually went a lot deeper in there than I intended, so I'm going to have to make bigger splines than I intended, but after the first one I was kind of committed. So here's all 4 splines cut. Now you can see that they protrude on the inside of the box. I made one screw up. Another side effect of making the slot deeper was the spline material I had, that plywood I wanted to try, wasn't quite wide enough. So it's going to require that I sort of trim back the corners a little bit. But as it turned out, my miters didn't turn out, the gluing didn't turn out exactly perfect. So I think that'll be a nice feature anyway. So I sort of like dodged a bullet there. So now I'm just going to glue these in and let them dry, and then I'm going to do the trimming to see how difficult that is on the inside. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the inside. So I'm hoping I'm going to use my flush cut saw to sort of get the most of it out. And then I have a little pointy sander which I'm going to put in there to hopefully smooth it out. Wasn't able to hold on to it, so I've moved it into the vise here. I think this will work better, I'm pretty sure. So I sanded down the outside, and I rolled over the edges on the belt sander too to get rid of that problem with the splines being a little bit too short. And I think that that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to try the inside, and what I'm hoping to use is this multi-tool that has a sander attachment. See if we can carefully sand down the inside of the splines. I've got some really aggressive paper on here. I've got 60 grit, and I may regret that. Yeah, we're going to try it, see what happens. I think I'm going to finish this up by hand. It's not working too badly, but it is making a mess of my rubber pad. And it is, of course, scuffing the wood too. Okay, so obviously I had to bring it over to the vise. I got the chisel into it. I've got most of it. I'm just going to finish cleaning it out and then sand it, and then I think we're good. So here is the finished box. Surprise! So yeah, I finished sanding it. Finished sanding on the inside. I glued in the bottom, and then I put double boiled linseed oil on it to start preserving it. And I like the way it soaked into the splines. It actually created a lot more contrast than I was expecting, because the plywood turned out to be a lot lighter than I thought. And as it turns out, with the splines being this thin, you can't even really tell it's plywood. So that, I don't know, that was sort of mediocre. But overall, I like how the box turned out. I like the detail on the inside of the miters by going all the way through. It definitely was more work to clean those out than I thought. It was definitely easier to use the chisel in the vise than try to use a sander. So I've definitely learned a lesson there. But overall, I think it turned out pretty well. Now this is going on my bedside table. I'm going to put my phone in it. and it's just to keep me from pulling my phone off the bedside table when I'm listening to podcasts at night and I roll over. So there you know, there you go. But overall, I think it was a pretty successful experiment. So so on to the next one.